Welcome, everyone. We've got this thing in our hackerspace where whenever someone enters the room, someone will say that person's name. Say it's Jonathan. We'll say Jonathan, and then wait a couple seconds, and then say welcome, and then like the whole room says welcome at the same time. So it's just like this huge feeling, which is like welcome. So welcome. Yeah. So today I'll be kind of talking about this matrix that we have developed, or the spreadsheet that we've developed to help create ramps and credit ramps between different types of assessments in schools and learning institutions and hacker communities. And so basically we'll start with this workshop will be in 3 parts. We'll do like an introduction and get set up on the HOPE 2020 matrix. And it's not the same matrix as the matrix chat. It's the name of this spreadsheet. So you'll learn more about that in a bit. And then I'll explain a little bit like why did we develop this matrix and some cultures about how we've been using it. And then the second third of this workshop will be kind of talking about the mechanics of how like you can compile GPA, compiling competency-based education, so these competency-based transcripts, and also compiling to micro-credentials like open badges. And then the third half of this, the last third of this workshop is the playground part where we get to play and try some stuff and get to experience what it's like using this matrix and ideally using it for HOPE. So anything you learn in any of the conference workshops, other workshops here, you can add it to the matrix. Just gonna try to open up this comments. There we go. Cool. I'm very quiet. Okay. Turning up my volume on the computer doesn't help. I'll just talk louder. Great. So let's get started. Actually, I wanted to ask you guys if like 1 or 2 people want to volunteer to speak up and say a little bit about why you wanted to join this talk. Like, what are you interested in learning more about? Any volunteers to say a little?
You can also write in chat. You don't need to use a mic. I see a couple of people typing. It looks like our presenter had a little connection issue. He just rejoined. He will be back shortly, but please keep writing on the chat. He can read it when he joins. Welcome back. Don't worry, you didn't miss anything. It's in the... Oh, he's still not with audio. Sorry, people, for the technical difficulties. It's the first workshop of the day. We're still getting started. Our presenter will be back shortly.
All right, cool. Can you guys?
Yeah, great. Yes.
Sorry about that. All right, so hopefully you guys have had time to open up the link to the HOPE 2020 matrix in Google Sheets. I'll share a little bit about it, what it looks like here on my screen.
We can paste the same link in shared notes if you can. On the shared notes tab.
Oh yeah, cool. I can do that. But yeah, so here, just a quick preview of what it looks like. This is like a skeleton of the matrix that I've made for the HOPE conference here. And so basically up here, you can have people's names, learners up here, and then on the y-axis is the skills, different challenges. You can also have each of these skills and challenges would be a link to resources and further information about that challenge. So if there's any time that I cut out again, basically that's going to be the working document, the working kind of playground where you can play around with these ideas. And I'm just going to kind of go through and talk about experience that we've had setting up this matrix at a innovative high school in Beijing, China, called Moonshot Academy, and like how we've been developing that inside a makerspace there and trying to preserve that culture, even though the school around it has changed a lot. So yeah, super glad and thank you for posting your reasons for joining this workshop. This workshop is for teachers, for self-directed learners, particularly teachers that are in public schools or in current education infrastructure institutions, to be able to help start to change from within these institutions. And self-directed learners looking to set up virtual learning communities with this whole pandemic. This is going to become a lot more people are making these virtual learning communities. And hackers and hackerspaces around the world. Let's so I'm going to tell you a story about why did we start this matrix. I'm muted. Okay, now I'm not muted. Okay.
Sorry, that was my bad. I muted you by accident last 30 seconds.
Last 30 seconds. Okay. Cool. I think last 30 seconds then would be. What was the last thing you heard me say?
I'm really sorry.
No worries. Okay, I'll just go back one slide. So basically, this is matrix. If there's any difficulties, go to this playground. This is where we can like try some ideas out. I will be presenting about some stories from developing this at the makerspace in a innovative high school in Beijing, China, called Moonshot Academy, and telling you stories about how we've developed this, even and maintain the culture of the makerspace, even though the surrounding school has changed quite a bit. And so this is just a description of like x-axis is for learner names, y-axis is for skills and links to the resources, and then these colors are different levels of mastery. That's just the broad overview of the matrix. So the ultimate goal of the matrix, and the full name of the matrix is the Matrix of Certifications to Teach. So the ultimate goal is to transform schools, these kind of siloed classroom, like walled off classrooms of different subjects, to transform them to be more like hackerspaces and to be more like just these spaces that where all of these subjects are interacting together and people are learning and like giving credit to each other fluidly. And even these buildings, these locations aren't closed themselves. They're not like prisons. They're more like communities that you go to and can share with all ages, not just each year. So yeah, everyone's vision for education. But really trying to target to like public schools and make this tool usable for public schools so that they can slowly transform from that left picture to the right picture, and slowly, like over 20 years, just like starting to weave in the fabric that they can start using with their current method of teaching, and then that fabric kind of allows for growth towards the right-sided picture. And so by building it on this kind of fabric, this matrix, it's a spreadsheet fabric for transferring credits between grades and competencies and micro-credentials.
Hey folks, I'm deeply sorry about this. Our presenter is in China, and you can imagine the issues we can have with. Oh, he's back.
Okay, cool. So
Welcome back.
matrix, thanks. The matrix addresses authority-designed curriculum and set pace, and evaluation using GPA. So the matrix won't get rid of grades, but it will gradually shift the landscape of teaching how material is delivered. So the grades will seem very odd. And so the matrix aims to transition from this kind of closed GPA to open forms of credit and awarding assessment. So The matrix aims to transition from closed GPA to open forms of credit and awarding assessment. And the second thing that the matrix aims to do is to release learners from this rigid, predetermined, unfun path. So to take the best of both worlds, where teachers can design curriculums, but then learners can take multiple paths through that curriculum based on their interests and still receive that kind of rigorous curriculum and different skills in that curriculum. And so it's basically allowing learners to kill multiple birds with one stone. Instead of having to do like one project in each of those core subject classes, they can design a project that covers multiple classes, and they can do it really in depth and really, really like have a lot of intrinsic motivation doing that. And so one reason why this can be really beneficial is that the imagination of learners far exceeds the capacity for teachers to design and deliver motivating challenges. So learners can design their own projects, and like even if two teachers come together to try to collaborate and make a performance task or a challenge that is exciting and collaborates between two subjects, they're not going to be able to outcompete learners and their creativity when they are intrinsically motivated. So trying to bring these two pieces together and make the best of both worlds, supporting teachers so that learners can design their own path and teachers can ensure their rigor and expectations of the original curriculum. So now on to the story about how we've done this at Moonshot. And actually, I gave a speech at Tsinghua, the kind of MIT of China, in Chinese, which is pretty cool. If you guys want to check that out sometime, I'll also post it into the notes. But this is kind of just a synopsis of that speech. And the link is very ugly, but that's what we've done. So yeah, Matrix, Makerspace. I get these two mixed up all the time. I joined Moonshot Academy in Beijing 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, March of 2018. And at that time, we were a small team of 13, and now we've grown to like 60 learners and 40 staff. And the goal from the beginning was to make innovative education and really push the envelope for education in China and really model what innovative education could be like for China. And it has its sights on helping basically reform and rebuild the whole public education system in China. That's its long-term vision. And so from the beginning, we were like a small team of very, very idealistic and passionate people. And we started with this blank room. It's kind of like a warehouse, but inside this warehouse, we had this one room. All right, so within this big warehouse, we have this one room. This is the makerspace. And we started with white walls, and we turned it into a thriving makerspace. And the learners, I basically stressed from the very beginning that the learners own this space and they govern it, they manage it, they learn how to do everything to maintain a makerspace. And so in doing that, they basically design their own government and have now weekly governance meetings to manage the space, check on the budget, and make rules or enforce rules if necessary. And if you know Mitch, on one of his hacker trip to China's trip, actually he introduced this talk. So Mitch brought a bunch of hackers to China. He did that every year since 2007. And on one of those trips, he came to Moonshot. It was actually the first time I met Mitch. And he really inspired the community and later decided to do a 3-month professional residence at Moonshot, which led to the creation of this community event called Build Nights. So most of you probably have experienced these kinds of synergistic community kind of hackery events. I think my slides are either not showing on my side or just haven't loaded yet.
They take a while to load, especially with your slow internet bars. So just be patient. They do show up.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and describe rather than wait, because you can move along that way.
Yep, can do. So this white picture is a very awesome picture of when Mitch brought, I don't know how many, 20 hackers to Moonshot, and we all sat in a big circle and just shared what we thought was cool, and it was a very magical moment. And then after that, we basically started these build nights. Every week we would have this time at night when people could come together. Anybody in like friends of Moonshot people could come, and it really turned into like jamming festivals and building cool things and making food together, and it was wonderful. And then Mitch decided to come to Moonshot for professional residence for 3 months, and he taught everyone how to solder, or he held a soldering workshop, and here's a great picture of him, but it's not loading. So then, basically, the makerspace had developed this culture of just being fearless and trying things, breaking things, learning through testing and like challenging your assumptions. And it kind of embodied the original spirit of Moonshot. But over time, Moonshot faced pressures from external factors and it changed a lot. The culture of Moonshot changed. And it actually ended up inputting or implementing grades, which at the beginning it had said, we don't do grades. So how do we do assessment? Well, they end up doing grades. So that led to this kind of just huge motivation to try to figure out how to do assessment in the way that Moonshot required, with having classes and set times during a week when I can meet and teach these kids about engineering stuff and making stuff, without yet letting grades and GPA kind of ruin that culture. Wow, these slides are taking a long time to load. So maybe I can just share my screen. Maybe that'll work.
They're actually showing here. They take longer for the presenter to see, so don't worry about it.
Okay. All right, then I gotta get my numbers right then. Slide 10 would be looking at build night right now, right?
Eighth build night.
Okay, cool. Great. So then, yeah, trying to figure out how to maintain this culture of build nights where people are just coming together and talking about how cool things are and showing off what they've made in the makerspace or a Moonshot or anywhere, and figure out how to maintain this without letting grades stifle it. And so we came up with this thing called a star guide. And it's really just like, it's kind of inspired from Montessori's style of observations and tracking of mastery as they demonstrate their skill in some kind of particular field at any time to any facilitator. And so here's an example of when I gave my speech at Tsinghua, what it would look like when you have content in here. Like there's a bunch of like headings of skills and subheadings, and then what those actually mean. And so here's a kind of a pun on Mark Zuckerberg when he came and gave a speech at Tsinghua, but his tones were all not very Chinese. So basically, this star guide is showing how people grow over time. The x-axis here is time, and the y-axis is different skills, and the shades are the different like level of mastery. And so as you gain more mastery and show more demonstration of this skill, it builds up, and eventually it gets to a point where you are certified to teach this skill. And so one of the main ideas of the matrix is to build up teachers, to encourage peers to teach each other. And if you can build up that much, like if you can build up a culture of teaching, then you can now outsource teaching from teachers and old people to the community, so that the community teaches itself. And that frees up the time of the guardians, of the teachers, to support nurturing passion. And so So yeah, what this kind of certification would look like is basically just a description of what the skill is, and then a case, like it can usually be a video, a best proof would be you teaching someone else. And then this basically is building up documentation of your learning, and which you could then use for like an open badge or other types of certifications, micro credentials. Okay. And at the beginning, so we took this idea from the Star Guide and we built it up into this matrix. That's when the matrix was kind of born. And at first we just painted it on the wall, used paper and markers and made different colors for different people, and then had skills all along the top. And this was really cool. We had learners teaching each other what the matrix thing is and how it can be used. And actually, one of the skills in the matrix was knowing how to read the matrix and knowing how to update the matrix. And but it soon kind of it was very clear that having it on the wall is a bit too inaccessible, and we needed some other form. So it moved into an online spreadsheet that people can collaborate and share with. And so this is a snippet of the very first shared spreadsheet version of the matrix. And I just want to kind of explain how it works here. So basically, you have people's names on the x-axis here. You have the learners on the y-axis here, and they have pictures, and the skills are on the x-axis. And so basically, here Dana will certify himself in knowing how to read and update this matrix. And what that means basically is that by putting his picture in the intersection here, it means that he has taught himself how to read this matrix, and he has taught himself how to update this matrix. And then what it means for Aubrey is that Dana has certified Aubrey to be a teacher in reading this matrix and updating this matrix. And so basically this serves as kind of a lookup table of teachers and skills and what they can teach. And it also shows kind of a lineage of your teachers. So it's like the kind of traditional Chinese teaching where you can say my master was him, my master was her, his master was him, his master was him, and it goes with that kind of lineage. You can see that in this matrix of certifications to teach by whose pictures are on whose intersections. And so what that looks like growing more is just to get a really cool map of people's pictures. And one thing we did after that was like, now it's on a Shimo document, it's on a shared spreadsheet, but it's still a little bit inaccessible. So we decided to project it on the ground so that everyone walking into Moonshot can see this matrix and can see, essentially look up anyone they want to learn from. If there's a skill on it that they want to learn, they can find the teacher. So that's kind of a rough synopsis of the story of how Matrix was born in Moonshot. And it's gotten better since then, and I'll show you some more of that later on. But yeah, basically, the matrix is just like a visual interface of all pages of a community wiki, and it indicates who has mastery of which skills. It's also, it accumulates learning work and teaching materials, and it open sources them so that any teacher in any subject can see the course materials that other teachers are using and use them, borrow them, or collaborate with them. And it also allows learners to make course material and to then take also the course material that a teacher taught and then teach a workshop on it. So it allows for this kind of exponential growth of teaching. And so the matrix doesn't necessarily require assessment to be done in any certain way, which is why it's a nice fabric for transferring different types of credits, or allowing for, like, anyone can use this fabric in their classroom, and then they can decide to do grades, they can decide to do competency-based education, and later on, or they can decide to make credentials. And the idea is that most people are probably doing grades, but over time, you can transfer and try different things. And also, the more self-directed learners will start to just go off and do their own thing, and then you can give them micro credentials from that, and eventually, hopefully, kind of drag the system to be less grade-like and more micro credentials. Let me just grab some water real quick. So yeah, it is designed to help manage learning materials and to kind of show the weaknesses of learning management systems. Weaknesses being that there's so many barriers, there's so many walls. And to give the schools choice to slowly shift their cultures in their classrooms. So in summary, it just happens to collect documented projects. It does this from any learning context, not just in your school, with a central window to view all learning material, and it can be searched and shared and grown with the whole community. So it's also a spreadsheet, which is super easy for anyone to contribute to. And yeah. Do you guys want to try this in your community? If you want to, just poke yes or hell yeah in the comments. Or no, that's also fine. Cool. I'm running about 5 minutes late here, but we'll be good. So now I just kind of want to jump into showing you the culture of how we've started to use the matrix. And for this, I'm going to share my screen here. Cool. Cool, yeah. All right, so this is an example of using the matrix to, or actually we are now, okay, one cool story is that, so I'm teaching, my semester ended on July 10th. And before July 10th, I just felt this kind of weird feeling that like learners aren't super motivated. I'm not super motivated. It's just kind of this like fake environment where we're teaching, especially all virtual. And after July 10th, then I started my own, like I started managing a project to develop the matrix into Moonshot's learning management system. And some learners were really excited about that and wanted to join. And so this kind of day and night shift from when school ends to when like summer begins, the real learning starts to happen, the real teaching starts to happen. And so this matrix here is actually developed to support the teams working on developing matrix into the LMS. That's why it's called this matrix teams matrix. And so as part of this development effort, we have a superstar learner at Moonshot, Daniel. He's actually teaching me JavaScript, and he's also teaching one of the other intern developers JavaScript. So every morning, 9 a.m., we get up and we listen to Daniel teach us some JavaScript. And we actually have this kind of triangle going where Daniel is teaching us, and we have two peer learners. And sometimes Daniel can't make a workshop, so C or I will teach each other. We'll teach the other person some skills that Daniel taught us before. And so we get this kind of nice triangle. And so I just wanted to show some videos here, like difference between let and var. Or first, null and undefined. Daniel was teaching us about this concept, and sometimes he does in Chinese, and sometimes he does it in English, and this is not going to work.
Who's going to share screen?
我用这个东西写，
我懂。
So basically, we just
大一点。
record our workshops and
怎
then
么对？
link in different clips of those workshops to the matrix.
OK， 那我们开始吧。其实最开始我们要讲的东西是 no 和 undefined 的区别。no 和 undefined 这两个东西的区别。那么有人想猜一猜这两个东西的区别是啥啊？
So one cool thing that Daniel did there was just basically one cool thing as a teacher he did was just asking people to guess what this concept is before he teaches the concept. And then another cool thing he did was when another person joined our workshop and he was going over a concept here, difference between let and var in JavaScript. Instead of him teaching it again to this new person who joined the workshop, he asked me to teach it because that generates evidence for me to show that I know this concept. By teaching someone else, I can go back through that recording, take that clip out, and then make my own certification for it and put it in the matrix. So here he asked me to teach the difference between let and var.
I looked it up before, but I forgot.
Okay, Jaguar, can you explain?
No. Okay. Yeah. So basically,
Oh no. Okay. Well, you get a moment where he asks me, but then I explain it, and then I miss a few details, and he jumps in and explains the other details I missed. And then the other example then is when Xiaoxi is teaching me something. So we're teaching each other, and we're making these certifications based on teaching each other, showcasing our evidence.
Daniel gave me so many comments.
All right. Unfortunately, my internet's not very great, but the beginning of that video was Xiaoxi saying that Daniel's giving her a lot of feedback and helping her improve her methods for reading, making her code readable. And so she was teaching me that in one of the sessions when Daniel wasn't there. So this is kind of an example of how we record our sessions on a virtual learning community and then compile out different clips to showcase our evidence. And so instead of Daniel, like, I mean, he will assign us homework, but the way we prove that we know it is by teaching other people rather than taking tests on it. They all have their place, but the matrix, basically, it demands a higher degree of mastery from learners rather than just taking a rote memorization and taking a test. You actually have to demonstrate through teaching, which is a next level beyond taking tests. Yeah, that's a very kind of quick synopsis of like how we've developed teaching cultures in the makerspace at Moonshot with the matrix as our kind of assessment guide and fabric for documenting our learning and sharing teaching resources. So yeah, I just kind of want to take a pause here and do some Q&A, and you're welcome to turn on your mic. You're welcome to post in the comments, and then I can dive more into like how we can do kind of pulling out GPA and competency-based assessments. But yeah, let's take 5 minutes to do some Q&A. Looking back to the comments, there's one from Jeff Craig about looks like this idea for hackerspaces, but some reservations for history instruction. I can totally agree with that. Actually, talking with some of the philosophy teachers at Moonshot here, they also have similar reservations. Just like it takes a lot to make a teacher of that kind of subject. But I'm curious to hear more from Jeff if you're still here. What those reservations are, kind of explicitly. And as for applying this in college labs, that's also like, it does take a level of maturity and self-direction to be able to use. It's been really helpful having Xiaoxi on the team for the Matrix team's Matrix because she's a college student doing an internship at Moonshot, and it's been a lot easier to build this kind of culture with that like higher level of maturity. The one thing to take notice is that like doing this in high schools, basically when high schoolers start, they're basically middle schoolers and they don't have that maturity. So the goal is that through using the matrix and kind of building up norms in your community, then it really helps them learn self-directed behaviors and habits much faster. But it takes a lot of energy and a lot of time to set this up in the beginning. These are good topics, and I don't have answers to them either. So one thing that I might be able to add to this discussion happening in the chat is like this kind of conundrum between self-direction and missing out on like core ideas of a curriculum, and or just like not having the level of mastery, not the level of mastery, but like having like all the holes filled in. And so the matrix is kind of just like this. It's really only just a spreadsheet of links to different content. And so it's the more of the culture of the classroom and the school that dictates how it's used. And so in a more grade-based version, the teacher could make like the skills or challenges be like units, and then have underneath the units have different challenges, and then just make everyone do that skill. Like that's one way they can use the matrix to just keep doing what they're doing. But then another idea with this micro certs is that the certifications themselves are linked together in ways that help resolve these problems with whether a learner knows enough information about a certain topic. And that's basically doing it through like propagation of trust and reputation of the teachers. Like you wouldn't certify someone if you didn't trust that they actually know it. And so those certifications are like really, really high. They're really, really valuable. So that's this. So the matrix is kind of just like this bridge between two different worlds, and how you solve those problems is kind of up to how you use the matrix, which I think can kind of I think this kind of goes in well to the next third of this workshop. But definitely keep this chat going. It looks great. Looks like a good discussion. So basically, I want to show a little bit now about how to compile GPA from the matrix. Using an example from a project, kind of a project-based learning project that we did at Moonshot about trying to get solar panels onto the new campus roof during a pandemic, which was very interesting. So I'm going to share my screen again. And the idea about having grades, or about using the matrix to compile grades, one thing is that you probably wouldn't have the whole, like the matrix be the only thing that contributes to grades. You probably have other pieces like competency development or the project completion, like what the status of that was, how much effort people put into it. But then for the part where it's like measuring, where you want the grade to be measuring how much skill was developed, the matrix can really help with that. And then, so in this case, this is what our matrix looked like for this project. We did a lot of focus on engineering and climate change and finance to really be able to finance that kind of whole solar panel project. And then basically, one piece that I haven't really mentioned much about is that what are these colors here? This like red color is just marking that some learner wants to learn this information. So it's kind of like a flag saying, hey, anyone who wants to teach this, come find me, I want to learn it. And this yellow marker here is anyone working on a skill but haven't created any evidence yet to really showcase their learning there. Then green means that anytime you have evidence and it's linked into the matrix, then that's when your yellow kind of working on learning changes to green, and you can click on it and you can see their work. And then P would be like anytime someone who is certified to teach that skill, they would go through it periodically and look at resources linked in by other peers and assess them on, yes, this has reached the quality level, like this has reached a high enough quality that you are now ready to be certified if you teach someone else. So it's kind of just like an indication of the quality of that evidence. And then this black with a C would be you are certified to teach, and actually that would eventually get erased or replaced with the teacher. Your teacher would put their icon, their favicon, on that intersection. And so back to like how you get grades from this. So we basically designed a grading scheme where they would get 30% for developing competencies, 30% for product completion, and 30% for developing skills. So that's where this part was where the matrix contributed to the grade. But all of these other pieces actually contributes to like they contribute towards that. So like this 10% of the blog, every time you write a blog, you're basically compiling resources and compiling evidence that you can link into the matrix. And so like it all kind of like works together. But then basically all it is just it's going through and summing up these weights of different skills. And so that weighting is what's important here, is as the teacher or the designer of the project and the course, they would add weights to skills. And the idea is that learners throughout the project can also add skills. So if you're noticing that some learners are needing a lot of help with like learning how to put a picture into the matrix, or just learning how to send an email to like cold calling a company about like what are the costs of the solar panels, then anyone can put that skill in here. And then later on the teacher can come through and say, okay, for the whole map of this course, I think that skill would be like 0.1% of the course. They just put in a weight. And then anytime someone adds an evidence, then they get that point. And if they get a quality evidence, then it would be double that point. And like these numbers, these calculations, you can change, you design as a teacher. But that's the idea, is that you just kind of tally up, sum up the LinkedIn evidences and the quality of that evidence. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the grades. One idea from the beginning with that star guide, where you're kind of like building up mastery. The idea was, instead of having like, grades are very reductive. Like you start with 100%, and then anytime you get anything wrong, you lose points. And it's just generates this fear of failure, which is horrible. So I was trying to figure out a way to like shift that mindset in my makerspace. I'm helping these learners grow. To instead be like, you can learn so many skills, and any skill you learn, you get a point for it, and any skill you get more mastery in, you like, it multiplies that score. And so then they can get like scores of like 255, and then it's just like the grade would be anything above 198 is an A, anything above 170 is a B, something like that. So it's allowing them to basically go through the matrix, has all these resources and different skills and tools they can learn how to do, and they can pick which ones they want to do, and basically game the system to get the grade they want, and follow the personalized path that they find most interesting. That definitely requires the teacher to bake in different kind of like maze structures to help the learners kind of go through the system to fulfill all those needs of the like requirements, or just like basic needs. But it offers them multiple paths. So instead of like doing your path, I have this assignment and you have to do it this way, and you get this many points for having it look cool, or having it have a light or something. I just wanted to open up more options for those learners. So that's one cool thing Matrix can do. And yeah, that pretty much sums up the GPA. So back to Q&A here. Do you guys have any questions about the GPA, kind of compiling GPA from Matrix? There's one question here from, are there guidelines around student mastery and how many topics they take on? Or is it all around interest? Do students usually start with something they want to build and have to fill in the gaps? Or a general interest in climate change, learning to code, etc.? Yeah, so some of the skills would have prerequisites, where in order to like be certified in the skill, you need to have done this skill, and so they're connected that way. So that would be kind of one way that they have guidelines kind of baked into the matrix. But otherwise, so far I've been making this kind of more just like interest based. Just do the things you're interested in and go for it. But it's really just a fabric that any teacher can kind of overlay their style, or their style of teaching on top of. And hopefully it becomes more like community resource, where the community culture is the teaching kind of force, and then it offers people to be more kind of supportive and helping each other and just inspiring each other. Yeah, I can totally. I'll upload that GPA example to the Hope 2020 Matrix shortly after this talk. Yeah. I thought it would be kind of funny. I don't know how we can make grades from the Hope 2020 conference, but one cool thought experiment I've been trying to think about is like how can we use GPA to cultivate this culture? Because really GPA is just a number. I think it's also similar to matrix, and it's just a fabric that you can sculpt, but it has such a deeply rooted way of doing it that tends to go in the reductive, not very healthy for learning type of assessment method. Any other questions regarding GPA stuff? We can move on to the competency-based assessment compiling. All right, cool. I think we'll move on. You can always post your comments here later, and the last third of this workshop is going to be more of a free-form play around with it in the matrix, Hope 2020 matrix, and free-form dialogue. So on to competency-based education. So this is basically the same kind of matrix here, actually, what I was showing you before, the same class. The engineering section of this was taken and put into Google Sheets. The next kind of iteration of the matrix was playing around with Google Sheets. It's a bit more advanced than this kind of Chinese version. In this Google Sheets, you're able to do kind of grouping and ungrouping, which is just super fantastic and helps make the whole matrix more readable and be able to put in more skills. But yeah, competency-based education is slightly better than grades. It's still a bunch of checkboxes, but it's getting there. So basically the way that you could compile competencies from the matrix is you have a separate sheet, another sheet in parallel to the matrix, which has all of the skills exactly the same as the matrix. And then you just kind of like checkbox which competencies these are helping grow. And so this is more for the teacher when they're developing different performance tasks. They would, in each performance task, kind of list out what is the task, how can you do it, here are some resources how to do it. And they would also list out like what competencies or learning goals this is helping you develop. And so by having another sheet here, like in Google Sheets here, it basically then allows another method to sum up these, how many X's or how many, basically kind of like summing up this in data and having a number at the end. So I haven't built this yet, but this is how it would work. Like when you put an evidence into the matrix for a particular skill, then it would have these tagged competencies to it, and it would link all of those. The idea is it would kind of show like tick marks of like all the different competencies that you're making over time. Yeah, I am not speaking very clearly, but it's similar to how the grades are calculated, the competencies are calculated. Yeah, do you guys have any questions about the competencies? There's some more here that I can talk about. Nice. Have a good one, John. Okay, so basically, competency-based education has a lot of rubrics, and rubrics are also, they kind of bend how people produce artifacts. They bend it to the rubrics. Rubrics are guiding, but they also constrain. And so one cool thing about the matrix that can help with competencies is that by having this open source shared, like massive links of learning artifacts, you can kind of get a sense for what is the quality based on different learners' submissions and like how they were assessed, like whether they have the passing blue mark or the just regular green assessed or linked in evidence. And another cool thing is that over time, you're basically building up this matrix from the beginning of the school or the community to the current. So you can have alumni from like 10 years before doing the same kind of challenges and then see how maybe even ask them to link in evidence they're doing currently or their original website they're still posting things to, so you can go back and see but you have all of these examples to show basically this natural rubric of actual work and then just kind of human intuition, like, yeah, this is great, instead of having these kind of forced, almost artificial rubrics. Yeah. Another idea about the competencies is that a lot of these competencies, there's this initiative called the Mastery Transcript Consortium, which is an initiative in the United States trying to connect colleges and and high schools to basically redefine that transcript from GPA to competency-based. And they're making this huge coalition to get that to happen. And so the Moonshot Academy is actually a pilot of that transcript and is trying it out currently. It's making these transcripts. And so one idea is that another way you can, the matrix would then have like a visualization where you can see the graduation requirements, and every time you do a skill, based on the connections between the skills and the prerequisites, every time you add some evidence in there, you can see like your progress towards the graduation requirements improve. And so you get this kind of instant feedback about like the things you're doing. Maybe you need to actually start practicing some other competencies that you're avoiding or you aren't aware of. Maybe like I would probably prefer doing more kind of tech stuff, but then maybe it's kind of cultural awareness or cross-cultural collaboration I'm not very strong in. So maybe in the next project that I choose, I would choose something that is working on some tech-related project with someone else from a different culture. So that's one other area where the matrix can kind of help learners guide their kind of journey through competency-based education. And also, one thing, some schools now are doing defenses where they defend an artifact at the end of the year to showcase their development and growth of competency. And this is kind of a very big event, like a thesis defense of a graduate study. But then the matrix kind of just offers a place where teachers can come in and do these kind of mini defenses or milestones, and kind of like Montessori, how they have these moments of demonstration. But yeah, that's it for competency-based education. You guys have any questions? Oh, we got a comment here. Cool, thanks, Daniel. In marketing and sales, we avoid discussing grades by framing educational scores to measure how far they are to the end of the trail with a personal roadmap. And we categorize this area as internal onboarding. All right, so then a couple more minutes for this Q&A here on competency-based education. How many cohorts have you worked through this system with? Do you tend to mix older and younger students to see the upcoming class with skills? This is still a very young tool. We technically first had our first cohort this semester. So in that example, yeah, we actually had some like the older classes leading the younger class so that they could help guide them and teach them about how to use the matrix. And now people in this, from that course, there's about 15 learners in that course. And we're going to have 140 learners in the next semester. And so a couple of those learners from our class here doing the climate project joined this project over the summer to develop a guidebook to teach the whole community how to use this. So they're doing these kind of how-to tutorial pages and recording videos of them teaching how to do a certain part of the matrix and recording it in Chinese to help everyone understand quicker and faster. And that actually is then demonstrating the skill of the matrix, which is pretty cool. It's also put in the matrix. And But yeah, it's still a very young system, and so we are going to test it out next semester with all all interdisciplinary projects, instead of just the one that I was teaching, and see how that goes. The idea there, the goal is that like there still is a silo in our kind of innovative education model at Moonshot, just because communication is hard. Like you can't communicate with everyone. You're not always communicating with everyone. So having like everyone kind of having a space where everyone's communication is recorded over time can allow for people to kind of go through and learn from each other as the projects are going on, even if they're not interacting. Like they can kind of go see, oh, this climate project learned how to cold call companies. I need to do that for mine now too. Cool. Like look into some of that evidence there. But yeah, it's still very young, and next semester it's gonna be growing more. So, but that is very, very good to mix older and younger students. Just waiting for Lee here. I think we have one more question coming. Oh, okay. All right, then I will move on to how to compile micro certifications from the matrix. And actually, I've already covered a lot of this. I've been kind of jumping around in my script here, but yeah, open source. Yeah, so micro credentials. Basically, the idea here is from this matrix, Teams matrix here. The goal is to document your learning so that you can build this habit of making quality certifications, making a nice open badge to be able to get credit from your learning, not just in school, but maybe from your after school activities or from your parents or from the cool guy down the street that knows how to tie knots, or any location, any place can be a learning moment. And so it's really important that we can get credit from those moments. Otherwise, anything that's valued is what's happening in these kind of prison-like schools. And so this color is basically just trying to help build up to that mastery of being able to teach, where you can get your certification. And so one example of a certification, I don't have my VPN on, so I won't be able to access this. And I don't really want to risk dropping the call. So it's similar to the kind of slides I showed you before. This is an example of a certification where I'm teaching Hugo how to use a sewing machine. And I actually had I had not been certified in how to use a sewing machine, but I taught myself a little bit how to use it, and I taught him as much as I knew. And I wrote my own certification on that. So someone who's like super expert at a sewing machine would be like, whoa, you don't even know how to do different kinds of stitching and all that. So like, you don't know how to use a sewing machine. They wouldn't certify me, but I'm able to certify Hugo so that he can learn as much as I can, or I have learned about that sewing machine. And so the idea here is that you're building up this networks of teachers, and whenever you go to another community, you're basically connecting these two communities together based on these networks of teachers. And well, sorry. By connecting learning communities together, it can create learning communities where the communities didn't exist before. There's another talk at Hope that if you're interested in this topic, you'll probably definitely be interested in that topic. Would definitely recommend looking out for other education-related talks. But yeah, I think I'd like to kind of skip this part and go straight into the Q&A and also doing more DIY with the Hope 2020 Matrix. The part about micro certifications here, I've covered quite a bit in the talk already. Just the idea that you learn by teaching, and building up these certifications, you can get credit in any location. So kind of to wrap up the me talking part of this presentation, an hour in. I'd like to just say thank you to the people who have really done a lot for making this happen. Mitch Altman for coming to Moonshot and just like jumpstarting this whole project. Dana Gretton is actually the founder of this idea, and Jonathan Nylander has been really helpful. Andrew Zutella and Jonathan Nylander both have been really helpful in making environments or teaching classes using this tool. And Simon Simonson was actually the person who painted it up on the wall, the very first matrix of Moonshot. And then some video appearances, some Daniel Hula, Xiaoxi Xu, they were both in the videos that I was showing. Actually, Billy, Laura, and Cindy didn't make it into the presentation here, but they are the 3 learners developing the guidebook for the matrix, which they are making some great content. So just want to say thank you to them. And then also, if you guys are interested in contributing to this project or want to join, we will be having bi-weekly meetups. Might be monthly, might be bi-weekly, but the next bi-weekly meetup will be 2 weeks after Hope on August 15th at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And basically, it's just a time when people can join together if you're interested in bringing a matrix to your community to help kind of organize and document your projects and share resources with the whole community. Then come join this workshop or this kind of meetup, and we can talk about how to get you started and or just like exchange experience, how things are going, talk about what works and what doesn't work. We can all kind of improve and iterate this tool together. It's still very young. And also, if you're interested in starting an open source open source project, we can totally work on starting one to make that matrix more UI friendly. Though having it be in a spreadsheet is really nice for anyone to be able to edit. There are more cool features that we can make that are harder to do in the spreadsheet that kind of turns off public schools from. So there's currently work being done at Moonshot to develop this microservice app to work with the learning management system. So if you're interested in working on that and joining that open source project, totally reach out to me. My email is at the top here, jaguar@moonshotacademy.cn. Cool. With that, let's just head over to some DIY. Let's work on this Hope Matrix here. I'm not sure how useful this will be for you guys during the conference, but definitely open and welcome to try adding some skills and adding some learning content that maybe you produced during some other workshops. But yeah, feel free to turn on your mic and ask any questions, or we can talk here for the next 15 minutes. Yeah, thank you all for coming. Yes, definitely a great tool for activists to share their techniques. I'm hoping actually one of my goals is that like Sunrise Movement or Sunrise School could use this to help just make climate activism happen faster in the United States. That is down here on the Hope Matrix, Sunrise School. So there's a lot actually I will be updating here as well. And I'll be kind of using this as my notes tool throughout the whole workshop. So any links that I find useful, I'll probably link in here. You're more than welcome to do the same and teach your friends about it. I will be uploading those videos that showed Daniel teaching to YouTube and link them in here just to kind of show a brief kind of use case for the matrix. And then also here, this GPA sheet is empty right now, but we'll be adding that in here too. And then also you can see here there's a help sheet at the bottom. This is actually kind of linking to an ancestry of matrices. So it shows out all of the matrices that have been born since the beginning and who their dependencies, who their parents were, so that you can kind of see how it progressed, and then also know who to contact if you want to learn more about a specific matrix. Then also here's a link to the guidebook that the learners are developing at Moonshot this summer. And a lot of these skills in this workshop, in this guidebook, will be uploaded to the Hope wiki. So you can also access it there throughout the workshop. Throughout the conference. But yeah, time is now yours for questions or playing the matrix. I don't have my VPN on now, so I can't see if you guys are editing, but more than welcome to. Actually, there's an Easter egg in here of Mitch Altman's soldering an LED certificate. So actually, I can show a couple just demos of like how I've been adding stuff in here. So like there's one kind of activity that Jonathan Nylander had created at Moonshot to just calculate your carbon footprint. And so here you can see it's just a short introduction of what the skill is, what kind of like how much time it would take you to make it or to do this challenge, and then some resources and some ways to assess how well you've done or what your progress is, and then just kind of some advice and some pictures to guide your exploration of that carbon footprint. And then basically you just kind of, this is a performance task. We would go and find a place to put it under climate related something. And so we can put this under, climate activism. So measuring your carbon footprint. And then we just link it in. Usually you can do a Command K, there's an option to link in. Oops. And then that's it. Then you have LinkedIn performance task. And then whenever you are doing this, or say you've researched or done the calculations for your carbon footprint, you just take a picture of that, or best would be to like record a short screen share of you talking about how you did it, and so you get your audio, your voice in there to really prove that it was you. And then same kind of thing there. You just Command K, or you can go up here to a link here and insert a link to it. What I'll probably do actually with this Hope 2020 matrix is create a folder so other people can upload different videos or documents into that folder as an option. Most likely though, you can just upload things to YouTube or other video hosting platforms on the internet and link from that platform directly to the matrix. So that's the other cool thing about the matrix, is that it accommodates any tool, any platform, any software. You just compile all the links to one place. So some teachers like using Evernote, some people like using Canvas, and Flipgrid for making short videos. So they're all totally doable. It's kind of like a little mini internet for your community. Very personalized internet. Another cool trick that you can do in the matrix is if you want to be able to find a topic, find a skill, you can search with Command F, just to find that name. But actually, it's only going to search what is shown. Like if you have some of these things here that are hidden, you hide the skill. I hide this, I won't be able to find hiding. I'll try to search for hiding. Open it, I'll be able to see hiding. Slow internet, but we're getting there. But then basically, the way around this is that you can just kind of right click up in this top corner here, and have it just show all of the skills. Just open up all of the rows and columns, then do your search, and then you can close them, and it will close back to your original view. So you don't have to go through and open up all these plus buttons. So that's a cool, quick way to navigate and search for different content. Another cool thing about this in Google Spreadsheets is that your view, like you might have a certain style of viewing the matrix, which plus signs you want open or which groups you want to be viewing, and that's unique to you. So it doesn't do that for the whole community. So every person can have their own kind of view of the matrix. But yeah, we got 5 more minutes here. Feel free to post any more questions or speak up. I'll just kind of keep showing some more cool tricks you can do in the matrix. Exporting data from the matrix. Can you clarify that question a little bit? Part of the exporting process for grades and competencies is to export your data. But do you mean to have kind of like a list of links to all the things you've inputted into the matrix? Oh, cool. That would be slick to have a resume export of yourself from the matrix. Currently, that is not a feature we have available, but definitely something that could be incorporated into the future. And actually, if we had that feature, probably a lot more people would want to use it. But actually, sharing permissions is an interesting thing here. It's an interesting balance to have your resources open for the community to use, when they might be stored in locations. Like maybe you want it only available for the community, but not for public. So that's some other kind of challenge that I'm currently working on, trying to figure out for like the next semester when we have all the learners in different projects using one matrix. Google Sheets actually has some really nice means. You can actually get some pretty fine-tuned control over permissions and who sees what. The Chinese-based version called Shimo doesn't have that much. But I think where like moving into like developing this as an open source project, that's when you can start to do more fine controlled feature development and allow for that kind of different permissions setting. And then also to just export your resume for yourself. But yeah, we are at 1 more minute for this workshop. I wanted to thank you guys, thank all of you for joining and providing social pressure for me to write a whole script and put all this stuff together and talk about it for an hour and a half. I hope we could have been more interactive and add more things to the matrix, but it's a slow grow, and definitely looking forward to, if you want to bring this to your communities, reach out to me by email and we can meet next August 15th. Enjoy all of your time at home. This is gonna be fun.